Cool.
Okay, let's start with who are you? Where are you currently sitting? What's the weather like? How are the waves?
Yeah, cool. I'm Ryan. I'm the owner of Timber Surf Company. We're in Santa Cruz, California, and right now I'm at my shop. Uh, it is equal parts wood shop and surfboard manufacturing space. Kind of hold court in both spaces here. The weather is freaking beautiful, and it's the beginning of January. And although we've seen a little bit of rain, it's still we're in days where you have to question what winter actually is because it's
Mhm.
like board shorts and t-shirts on the beach. And the waves are pumping right now. We've had a couple of days of 6 to 8, and that's not going anywhere for the next week. So town is buzzing. Everybody is stoked.
But is everybody surfed out? Because it was even bigger than that a week ago.
It was massive but messy. It didn't get
Okay.
here for that at all. There was like a really small window, but when it was kind of maxed out in town, and so everything was like 20 foot plus.
Yeah.
The town doesn't really hold that very well. The West Side Steamers Lane, that kind of has a wave that's always surfable, but everywhere else just got maxed out and messy. Closeouts and windy and just it was more kind of survival mode. I'd
Yeah.
say probably a few dozen people were out in the water that day at most.
Yeah.
But the shoulder of that, right, as that swell faded out and then kind of like it really pushed around some good sandbars, also did some damage to the piers and some parts of town got a little hurt, but some sandbars set up nicely. And so the last week since then has been really good.
Are you able to surf at all with a 2 week old in the house?
I have been, yes. I've been very lucky. The first kid that I had, it took me probably 3 to 4 months to get out in the water.
Wow.
And this go around, granted, it's been about 2 weeks and I've surfed a handful of times already. But we've had a lot of family over, being the holiday season, like there was a lot of help that we had at the house.
Yeah.
But yeah, my wife is a champ and she loves me to be doing the things that fulfill me.
Yeah.
For right now, it's nap and rest, and for me, it's surf and grind.
Good. Well, I'm glad you can manage it because it's easy to lose sight of how meditative and restorative surfing can be, and just focus on the family and stuff like that. But then you realize that it's actually important to take a break from that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, it's good if you can see it that way. It's easy to see it that way in pockets, but then you have a bad surf, or you kind of like. For me, I pass that threshold sometimes. I stay out a little bit too long, and then the rest of the day I'm sleepwalking.
Mm,
I'm like a happy kind of medium. If I surf for an hour and change, I'm good. If I surf close to 2 hours, I'm falling asleep at the dinner table.
totally. I've
Yeah.
I hate to admit it, but 45 minutes is good for me. I'm
Yeah.
like, if I get a 45-minute window, I can justify taking time away from the family, taking time away from the business, but I can still get three waves in basically in 45 minutes, three decent waves in, and feel like I ticked the box for the day.
Yeah, it's funny how that number shrinks over time. Both the wave count,
Does.
of course, the time window. Where you surf is 45 minutes. Are you scratching with a bunch of other folks for the
No,
minutes? No.
no. I don't even paddle out into crowds anymore, to be honest. Orange County is wide open enough to where you can find waves to yourself. It's always crowded in the main spots, but if you just go down the beach a little bit, you can find lesser quality waves by yourself. And I can pick off three sets in 45 minutes, no problem.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Lesser waves at an empty lineup, or lesser quality waves, but an empty lineup is the preference.
Exactly. And I'm not riding a pointy thruster anymore, really, when the waves aren't perfect. And so I'm on the right equipment for the lesser waves, anyways, and it's fine.
What do you ride in? What does that mean? Like,
Well, lately, I mean, honestly, for the last 2 months, whether it's big or small, I've been riding that 610 Morning of the Earth twin fin channel bottom, just mid length, goes super forgiving, goes on anything, and is easy to ride.
yeah, Do you ride that similar? Like, do you adjust your style to not try and ride it like a pointy thruster?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had it for a couple of years and I've ridden other boards in that time. But when I first got it, it took me a little while to kind of uh, adjust to it. And I don't think it was like before really the mid-length trend as we now know it. And so I don't think I even had another mid-length. It was my first one, but I would just, Torrin Martin was riding him. I look at what he was doing and it's like, just try to model your surfing after that.
Yeah, easier said than done for sure.
Positioning though, like I don't surf like him, but I'm not, I think initially I was trying to go too forward on it and like get like pump it and try to maneuver it. And it's like, no, you can just sit towards the back or stand towards the back. And it has plenty of drive when you're back there, but you can then still maneuver it. And it has that swing weight in the front. So you kind of get to your feet back there. You don't have to shuffle around. You can just aim, angle for a bottom turn, bank off the bottom. It has tons of speed, bank off the top, run and race if you need to. And you can do it all from the back third of the board.
Yeah, that's good if you got
So,
a whip that allows all that.
yeah. Yeah. Well, did you grow up in Santa Cruz?
No, I grew up over the hill in a town called Sunnyvale.
Okay.
Yeah, my folks were like, well, my dad anyways was tech, early days of tech, kind of worked on like the early versions of the laptop with HP.
Wow.
That was the, Silicon Valley kind of upbringing over there.
Yeah.
And I also have family ties in Oregon. A lot of my family, my brother was born and raised in Oregon. My dad's kind of history is in Oregon. My other brother to this day lives in Oregon, has been up there for about 20 years. And yeah, so there was always back and forth, kind of ping ponging between Oregon and Bay Area. And so I went to Oregon for college and met my wife there, and then we moved back to the Bay Area. We're living in Oakland for a while, and we're always making that drive from Oakland to Santa Cruz every weekend. And that's a ridiculous drive to be making every weekend. And so, yeah, eventually we bit the bullet rent wise and moved down here.
Mm,
And although it's very difficult to pay for this this place that we live, it's so easy to enjoy.
mm.
So yeah,
Where
won't be out anytime soon, that's for sure.
where did you discover surfing?
Half Moon Bay is where I learned. Between Half Moon Bay and Santa Cruz is where I learned. Most of the time I was up in the early days in Half Moon Bay. And then once I kind of like, I actually never had a longboard or a soft top. I learned on a pointy thruster. It was actually a 6'5" Almeric sashimi model.
Hmm.
It had, I don't know, let's see when I would have bought this, is probably like 98 or something.
Wow. Okay.
Had those, I don't know what they were called, but the fin boxes where it had a screw, it had a flathead screw that went through the deck into like the hardware that was built into the board. Um, yeah, had that board for a long time and probably just made a fool of myself over and over again. But to this day, other than like floating around with my kid, have never been on a soft top, never actually surfed a soft top. And I love that. So you don't need to learn on a soft top.
Um, I don't disagree with you, but we'll get into the corky later, I guess,
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
as a foil to the soft top, basically.
Yeah.
Um, Tell me about your academic. What'd you study in college, and then what was your career path before you've ended up at Timber Surf Co?
Yeah, I studied design in school. That was the move. I thought it was going to be graphic design because I just navigated towards art. It seemed like an applicable field for art and creativity. But while I was at the University of Oregon, they just announced the creation of a program called product design. And it was kind of industrial design meets digital design, if you will. So it was a brand new program, and literally bumped into the lady who would become my wife, and she told me she was doing product design, and I thought that sounded like a good program too, not just for the purpose of it, but like I kind of wanted to follow her,
Mm,
and that worked out well. Now married with two kids. but yeah, studied product design at University of Oregon, and then bopped around in a couple of prototype fabrication based jobs, shop technicians in wood shops, worked at the Academy of Art University in their design school for automotive design. I also worked at Tesla for about 7 or 8 years, and I was a design engineer working under the design studio. So I worked 2 steps away from the chief designer, which was a rad place to be at a rad company at that time. Tesla's pretty crazy now, but early days, I was there from what 2012 to 2018, 2019.
Okay.
So it was
When did
still
they launch their first car? Was it 2010?
Model S would have been late 2010, I think.
Okay.
So I was there at like the 13,000th Model S. For some reason, that's stuck with memory. So yeah, that was a ridiculous job. It was awesome. We called it Stressla though. Like it was so high paced that kind of worked dog years over there. 1 year at Tesla is like 4 years in a normal industry job. So as it were, everybody kind of works that job for a handful of years, and they recruit young talent like myself and many others that were kind of fresh out of school. So they have a low salary cap, and people just are so excited and eager to work. They work their butts off for 4 or 5 years, until they get all that stock equity kind of dumped, and then there's burnout, and they just recycle the staff. And so that was my path. I made it a little bit longer than most people, but I did 6 or 7 years there. And then quit to basically to do timber. And I was just jumped right in. I knew nothing about shaping when I started. Managed to make some really good boards in the beginning, and also managed to make some really bad boards. Kind of kept them all in-house, doing a lot of development and making just fancy wood boards, a lot of like design pieces and just high craftsmanship pieces where I got to flex the building aspect of it a little bit more than the shaping. And then over the years, it's just the business of timber has evolved. It's moved away from like boards for art or it moved away from art boards and wall hangers to now like fully functional pieces of art that can be hung on the wall, but still ought to be surfed.
Um, Tell me more about when you left Tesla, why, of all the things that you can get into, why board building?
Yeah, I had my heart set on 2 things. It was either going to be building trailers, like wooden tow behind teardrop style trailers, or wooden surfboards. And the reason for that is because my wife and I got married in 2017, and in our house for the 6 months leading up to that, we built our own teardrop trailer from the ground up, and then our honeymoon was a 6 month trip in that teardrop trailer from California to Panama. And so we spent 6 months living out of the back of the teardrop, driving Pan American Highway and like zigzagging through mainland Mexico. And that we just fell in love with that. And that's, we love the idea of building a trailer company based on the thing that we kickstarted our marriage with. That was a really appetizing idea. The terrifying part of that was like overhead and just duration and time to ramp and scale that business up would have been really tough.
Yeah.
Surfboards was the other option, and I just went knee deep into surfboards.
Is there anybody else building similar trailers as a business?
Yeah, there's one company called Oregon Trailer, and that's actually a buddy who owns that business. That's another sort of reason why I nudged away from that. It's because he helped me a lot to build my first trailer. He would like kind of send me parts lists and bombs and like tips on execution, how to build the right style of hinge for your trunk latch so it doesn't leak when it rains, and the right hardware to use for this type of door. So it's just whatever, all the things he's learned along the way. He definitely helped me out a lot. And so I didn't want to step on his toes too much. But Oregon Trailer is awesome. And those trailers are like super off-road hefty things that are 30, 40 grand per piece. But they're
Wow.
works of art.
And the idea of you doing that for your honeymoon, um, whose idea was it? Did you have to talk your wife into it?
Good question. I've never been asked that. I don't really know whose idea it was. I mean, I truly don't know. I would love to revisit that conversation with her. But no, I mean, I think that kind of tells, answers it a little bit. Definitely didn't have to talk her into it. I think neither of us knew what it was gonna be like. We knew the basics, we knew kind of drive south and like a few key points about safety that everybody was kind of jamming down our throats before the trip, but we didn't know what it would look like. We actually thought we were just going to do, what do we think? We thought we were going to go all the way to Panama and back in 6 months. And then as we left home, we ended up spending an entire month traveling through the Southwest, through like New Mexico, all up until Texas. And then we ended up spending 3 months in Mexico, whereas the plan was, right, 1 month top to bottom in Mexico. We just fell in love with so many places in Mexico, and everywhere we went, we got told by a different person, local or traveler, like, oh no, you 100 miles that way, like you got to see it. You have to go see this, and here's a great place to stay. And we ended up just driving circles around mainland, taking way longer than we thought. And then when, we found the beach and we got stuck for swells every now and then, and it took 2 weeks at one spot where we had originally planned 2 days. So it was super fluid. And we ended up just driving straight to Panama. And we didn't do a return trip. We ended up putting our car and trailer on a boat and shipped it back. And then we flew back to like Ventura, Oxnard zone, and drove up the rest of the way from there.
Did you document the trip thoroughly?
Not really. It was 2017. So we had like, I guess it was a little early days of Instagram. We had an Instagram for our trip, and that still exists. But we didn't do anything, too deep. We
Hmm.
weren't really trying to be the van life kind of full time
Yeah.
road people.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, yeah.
for ourselves.
Do you want to share that Instagram?
Sure. It's called Vo with the Flow. It's a little strange. I'll text you the page. I don't think there's anything too awesome to find on there, but you can see our
Wow.
rig. Our rig was pretty cool. So we had this Volvo cross country, this 2006 Volvo cross country, the XC70, and that thing was just kitted to the nines. Like I tore that car apart and rebuilt it, like rebuilt the entire suspension package, gave it 5 inches of lift in the most ghetto fabulous way that you can imagine. And the thing was breaking down the whole way. And what we did not anticipate is that model of car, while there are Volvos down in Mexico, that model was never sold in Mexico, and therefore there are no parts to that model. And also, we're just turning heads because people have never seen this car before. And we even go to a Volvo dealership in the middle of Mexico City, and like everything stops. All of the workers stop and look at us driving in, like, what the heck is this? And yeah, it's
That's
really
a cool car, though.
it was a cool car, and it served us really well. Our all-wheel drive crapped out halfway through, which we paid for a bunch of times. And then our axle kept popping out, uh, which which also caused some problems. But we
Yeah.
made it. We literally just like limped onto the loading docks in Panama City, barely driving like 10 miles an hour, just like a cartoon, man. This thing just barely made it onto the boat. And then and the day we drove off the boat in California, our axle snapped outright. And yeah, it was, so we picked it up. We picked up the car in Oxnard and we drove to Cambria. And about 5 miles south of Cambria, where we had a campsite, the axle just literally stopped and the car it was done. And I tried to replace that axle since Mexico City, again in Costa Rica. No luck. They said it was 30 days and $3,000 to get it. And when this axle finally snapped for good, it was like 2 miles away from an auto zone. And they had the axle in stock for $70. And I just fixed it in the parking lot and we were up the next day.
Unbelievable, dude.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was crazy. It was great. Crazy luck.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you spell Vo for Vo with the flow?
Yeah, VO. And I don't remember there's some underscores involved. I think it's VO underscore with the underscore flow.
Okay.
I'll text it to you.
Okay, perfect. I'll post it in the show notes for anybody who's listening. Um, so then as it relates to board building, why build boards? If you're going to get into board building, why wood?
Yeah, the intent, I mean, sustainability is like the crux. That's the direction I'm trying to progress in, is to build a better board that's built better, that lasts longer. Um, and wood is, first of all, it's familiar to me, but it's also, I think, the easiest path forward to find progress in that space. And the real idea upon progressing in sustainability is not necessarily to ditch foam, because I think foam is a necessary part of the build, but to ditch resin. And so I wanted to build a board where that didn't require fiberglass and didn't require thus heaps of wasted resin. And so using wood as the strengthening layer was really the idea behind that. And I think I had made a ton of progress. I still have boards that are reflections of that. But none of them are like the silver bullet. You know what I mean? It's just steadily making progress towards a super sustainable build. It's really tricky to, and that material works. You know, I mean, it's not good, but it works. Foam, glass, resin is a really functional construction style. But
so what were the early builds, and how do you build a surfboard without resin?
yeah, without resin, you can expect to, so if you rely on wood to provide the strength, you then need to rely on something else to provide the waterproofing. So if your wood is effectively your fiberglass, you then do not need the glass itself, but you need something to provide longevity for the wood. And the closest avenue for that is like oil-based sealers, wipe-on finishes, varnishes, water-based finishes. And there's things in that space. I tried almost all of them, and everything is a give and take. There's pros and cons behind each move that you make. I think other parts of the world are doing a really good job at this. There's a lot of board builders in Australia and Europe that are successfully building boards without resin. Unfortunately, each of those boards does require maintenance. If you have an oil-based finish or penetrating sealer of some sorts, like you have kind of this 1 to 2 year window where you need to scrub and refinish your board. And while that's a really easy process to do, it doesn't seem like, in my experience, America is ready for that. People in this country kind of have that like flash consumerism where they want to buy something and just have it ready to go as long as it lasts, and when it breaks or when it's no longer at peak quality, it's in the dumpster. So I've kind of played both ends of the spectrum. I've built boards in like the most sustainable way as I possibly can, and some of my personal boards are that way. I have a board sitting over here that has no fiberglass on the outside. It has one layer of fiberglass underneath a cork and a wood veneer scrim. And that's a really good construction for me. I build it for me, but I won't sell that as my business, because I found, like I just mentioned, people are a little bit in this market are a little bit more finicky with their like longevity and care of the product.
So it sounds like when you started the business, you didn't have a super clear vision on what the business would be, or, I mean, clearly there's a gap in the market for what you're trying to do, but you're really defining what it is, and then it's going to be incumbent upon you to find a consumer that wants that thing, right?
Yeah. I've always let the consumers drive the scale.
Okay.
I'm not pushing some kind of scale and then trying to fit that in the market. I'm building boards the way I want to, and of course listening to what the market is responding to. I have a few examples of that and ways that I've pivoted my construction style to suit the constant feedback I've been getting. But my scale is really whatever is available out there. And I think that's the benefit of treating this like a side hustle and not a full-time gig. Doesn't need to pay for my mortgage.
Right.
It needs to, of course, be worth my time, and I need to be proud of the stuff I do.
Right.
But yeah, I'm making like 2 boards a week, really. So 100
Gotcha.
a year is kind of the cap that we have.
Tell me about the current three types of construction that you're doing now.
Sure, I have a price point wise and performance wise, we have a low, mid, and a high. The low end price point wise is a Corky, and that's kind of our solution to a soft top, but we call it a semi-soft top, and it doesn't suck. It doesn't suck for a few reasons. It's made by humans here in our shop. We don't have any mass manufacturing jigs. We don't really have any compromises on the build process. It is a fully shaped EPS core. It has a normal stringer, normal EPS, like density, fully shaped rail, everything like futures fin boxes, everything as a conventional board would be shaped. And then we offset that thickness by a little bit, by about a 1/4 inch total. We have a glassed, like a bio-based epoxy glass layer that goes on that EPS blank, and then we vacuum bag on a cork shell to the outside, and then the board is done. There is no.
When you say the glass layer is fiberglass?
Yeah, the construction is EPS foam, fiberglass, cork.
Got it.
Words to outwards. And so the board is fiberglass. It does have, that allows it to be durable. It allows it to have the right amount of flex. It allows it to be relatively ding resistant. And then we add on the cork on top of that. And that cork is sort of twofold. It offsets the amount of fiberglass and resin that you need, prevents the need for wax. It is incredibly ding resistant, and we still can have like a properly shaped rail on that thing. And it doesn't surf like a noodle, like a wet noodle, like all kind of soft tops do. So this is like kind of in the premium semi-soft top category. That's the Corky. The mid-level range.
Real quick question. It's stringerless, correct?
They're stringered. Yeah,
they are stringered.
Performance ply stringers inside all of them.
Got you. And then you said, what does the wrap look like on the edge? Like, does it maintain a actual hard edge?
Yeah, we get a speed bead on there. The cork itself is 1/8 of an inch thick, and it has enough flex and give such that it can adheres to the glass shape. So it'll follow that speed bead pretty well. It fades off eventually, like wear and tear will kind of, the leash wrapping around that speed bead over time, it will kind of like wear down that hard edge. It still has a functional speed bead on it. Let's see. And truthfully, like I ride pointy thrusters a lot, and that's generally what I make for myself between that and like fishy twin fins. And I ride these things as my high performance shortboard. I have a Corky version of that, and it's great. It's probably not the right construction for it. I think the right construction is more closer to like Funformance style boards.
Mm-hmm.
Everything other than pointy thrusters, or people that care about like getting points on a bottom turn and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And it's got to be very lightweight, I would imagine too, right?
Yeah, super light. Yeah, the weight of the cork added is less than the amount of weight that we ditch by losing resin.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's a really good construction, and they're affordable. Like I said, $650 for a shortboard is kind of the price point there, $1,000 for a longboard. That's like there. The mid-level boards that we have are called the textile boards, and that's either an EPS or a PU core, depending on what the customer wants. I think it's a better build in an EPS core, a lot harder to build that way, but I like the performance on an EPS core of those boards. And that has a normal EPS core, normal stringer, a parabolic cork rail stringer around the full perimeter of the board. And then we have a fiberglass and a flax glassing schedule. So the deck patch is all flax going 2/3 up the board. The fin patch going 1/3 up the tail is all flax. And then a single layer of fiberglass on top of that flax. And those are the high performance, like relatively normal boards as far as the market is concerned. That cork does a really good job dampening chatter. And that's why I mentioned EPS. Like I like the weight of an EPS board, but adding that cork along the perimeter of the entire thing really dampens it and makes it feel like a PU, but it's super light and flexy and like maintains that flex just because it's an EPS board.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then the third tier of board we make is called the Splendor series, and those are on the fancier end. This is like the flagship construction that we offer. It was the first thing that we really entered with like a larger degree of scale. And it's a low density EPS core with a redwood skin filling the entire deck, and then cork rails and cork bottom. And the redwood skin is super beautiful. It's all reclaimed redwood from the Santa Cruz Mountains right here. In the last tree that we got, I could like throw a stone from my shop to like where that tree fell. And that tree
Wow.
falls right here. I have a partner with a mill that only deals in fallen trees. He slices it up, gives it to me. We sticker it and cure it here in our shop. We give it to a neighboring shop who sands it all to thickness, and then we do all the vacuum bagging here ourselves. And that's like a ridiculously authentic wood board. It's not, off the shelf wood veneer. And they're beautiful because of that.
Yeah.
You end up with some incredible looking pieces of wood. They're all different. It's no repeated wood grain like plywood, wood veneer style production. It's a really unique piece.
So it looks as beautiful as a wall hanger, essentially, but they're built for surfing.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to they're expensive just because of the amount of labor that goes into it and premium materials, like I mentioned, like real wood going into that. So you have to treat it really well, treat it like it's expensive, and because you don't want to have to do a ding repair on those things. It gets a little bit more tricky.
Yeah. So you mentioned also that 3 tiers in terms of performance. So the textile, of course, the middle build would be the highest performance surfboard. Um, is there any, given the construction, is there any compromise in terms of performance compared to traditional construction? And is there any compromise in terms of durability, or is there an enhancement?
Yeah, the Redwood boards, the Splendor series, those ones are going to be stiffer. So I don't ride those again for like performance shortboard shapes. I ride textiles and corkies for shortboards if I'm wanting to do just if I want my board to respond immediately under my foot to do exactly what I'm telling it to do. Textile or corkies are best for that. Corkies technically wear down over time just by your feet kind of grinding on the deck. It's
Gotcha.
like rubbing the eraser on a pencil. Like the way that it works, it causes abrasion and it wears down a little bit. That doesn't really impact performance at all, but it's a visual impact. And then you can always just add more cork. Otherwise, textile boards, high performance, treat them normally. They respond normally, normal glass boards. And then, yeah, the Redwood ones, I think I mentioned, they're a little stiff. They're slightly heavier, almost just like a conventional PU glass job. They don't end up that heavy, but they're a little bit heavier. They're a little bit stiffer, and you don't want to, they're beautiful and hard to match a ding repair perfectly. So you want to take good care of those.
Yeah. So, obviously when it comes to sustainability, durability is a huge factor. With the textile boards specifically, is there any enhancement in the durability through the construction? Or would you
Yeah,
say it's equivalent?
yeah. The theory was that flax. So actually, fiberglass doesn't really contribute to the eco footprint. It's resin that does. And the theory in the first place was to offset resin by having, less fiberglass, and that was kind of the decision-making process to develop that board. But it ends up being the same amount of resin. And the only thing that we can say is that flax offers a better impact protection than fiberglass. So you can get a board that's lighter, that has the same, less of a glass layer, quote unquote, that has the same kind of pressure denting characteristics that a normal board would. So it'll last longer. But it's grasping for straws to call those ones super sustainable. The only thing we do across the board is that we have a bio-based resin. And so we use entropy resins, which is 35% tree sap based. And so it's a good soft epoxy resin that goes on really well. And it's 35% bio-based content at finished volume. So
Gotcha.
that's the best that we have available in the States right now. Other parts of the world, they're a little bit more progressive with their bio-based materials. In Europe, they have a couple actually. There's one polyester bio resin that's undergoing some trials right now, which is really interesting. It's about 70% bio-based and it's polyester, and that's the first of its kind. Other than that, there's 50 and 60% bio-based epoxies. And they're all being tried. I think the downside to all of those is that they yellow really quickly.
Yeah.
So we'll see. 35% is the best that we have in the States right now, while still maintaining like a good functional laminating.
Right. Um, who laminates your boards?
Yeah, I have one guy who's been a lifer here in town. His name's Doghouse Glassing, and he laminates. We do everything in shop here.
Okay.
We have a small glass room, just two racks with a whole lot of staging area, and then we have sanding in the shop as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been the glasser, I've been the sander. I'm a full stop board builder. So I do it all myself, but ever since Dog came around last year, I'm super happy. Allows
Good.
me to focus on the board building aspects and also just the business end in general.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I mean, I've been to your factory and
Oh, you've been to my old shop?
oh, you're in a new one then.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I moved about a year and a half ago. Yeah, landlord just walked in, huh? Yeah, I moved about a year and change, year and a half ago to a new shop. So I'm on the other
Okay.
side of town. It's in Aptos, like right off the freeway, really close to my house. Much better shop, much better,
Gotcha.
smaller, but like better layout, a lot more efficient.
Gotcha. Well, what
Yeah.
I was gonna say is so much craftsmanship and work goes into these boards, and I think listeners could identify that just by hearing you talk. And then it it would require a tremendous marketing plan and website and all this kind of stuff to actually showcase the detail of everything that you're talking about. But obviously, you're doing all the work. And so it's just impossible to fully reflect what you're doing. And I think you do a good job, by the way, with the marketing, but it's so detailed that you need like professional film crew in there documenting some of this stuff to really do it justice. So I'm glad to hear that you do have at least one person helping with one part of the process so that you can actually showcase. But that said, saw you at the boardroom show this year, so you were getting out showcasing it there. Saw you pop up on Peter King's Instagram, educating Lenny, in fact, as to what you were doing. So you are making some real inroads with the marketing stuff.
Yeah, I wasn't educating. I wouldn't claim to educate Kyle Lenny on anything.
He asked you specifically, what was this? And you told him what that was.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, man, you're spot on. It's really hard to do everything justice. And I think the things you pointed out are quite topical. You have a um, really good assessment on that, because really telling the full story of what I'm doing here has been a challenge. Specifically not in formats like this. Formats like this, it's great to just have conversation and talk through the different iterations and reasons behind each of the boards. But putting all of that information in like a placeholder on a website or in this forever evolving Instagram model is really challenging, especially because it's just so time consuming. And so I have a little bit of help, but I don't think we do as good of a job as we should, because even in town here, so many people don't know that there's this company right here that exists that's doing really rad stuff with wood. Um, Even though like our entire business model can just saturate Santa Cruz and not have to move out of place. It's a tough game. How do there's
Well,
not a perfect arrow to like solve that
the
visibility.
no, the other challenge here is that the surf space is particularly just stuck in old construction or traditional construction, I should say. And so when I see what you're up to, like let's say I just came across Timber Surf Co. on Instagram, I'd be like, oh, somebody making surfboards out of wood.
Yeah.
Okay. Like it's probably not going to work as good as what I'm used to. And I get it. It's cool. And there's a little segment of the market that might want a wood surfboard, but probably not going to work as good. So I'll just kind of not necessarily ignore it, but just I'm aware of it, but maybe I won't ride it myself until the other day I see Austin Smith Ford pop up on your Instagram, just freaking lighting up a wave. I was
Yeah.
like, holy cow. And then I see that it's timber and I'm like, whoa, and now I'm interested, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. I've been holding off on like kind of team ridership stuff for the longest time, just thinking that wasn't really a good place to put my energy. But ever since working out a little deal with Austin, and we don't have a deal, we just, I make him boards and he gives me terrific feedback. And the byproduct of that is that he's absolutely shredding on them and sending back clips. So it's been great. And I've heard from so many people, just a couple of those clips. Hey, what are the dims on Austin's board? Like, can you send me a picture of that outline? Like, it's so funny how that works. You can't argue with it. But then you open Instagram, I don't know about you, but in between the ads, it's 9 out of 10 videos of people ripping. And so like, it seems so saturated, yet it's obviously working.
Yeah, it's a great point. Well, let me ask you this. Somebody who has made inroads against the grain of or the current, I guess, of traditional construction is dark arts. And dark arts didn't invent carbon fiber vacuum bagging, but they really have fine-tuned it and honed it and made it kind of appealing through marketing to the market. They've worked with different board building brands with their board models and their team riders to kind of get that construction out into the mainstream. And they've done really, really well with it. But through doing that, some of those major manufacturers have realized we could just do this in-house. It's vacuum bagging, carbon fiber. And thanks, by the way, for doing all the honing and the R&Ding, but we can do this in our house. And they've done that, And so it's kind of unfortunate for dark arts to be faced with that. But I'm curious from your vantage point, do you see what you're doing as having that mainstream applicability eventually through enough marketing? And could you then see a major manufacturer doing something similar to what you're doing?
Yeah, I don't think the Splinter series boards are, I mean, that the mass manufactured version of those was Firewire, right? It was Firewire when they were doing the Polonia skins. And now they stopped doing that for endless amount of reasons, but Aloha is doing that now, and I don't know where they're out of, but it's certainly overseas, Thailand or Asia somewhere. And that doesn't excite me. What excites me is this beautiful wood grain. And I think that's the kind of niche of the market that I have. Nobody's going to be able to do this with the wood sourcing that I have at the price points that I have. And it's taken 5 years to get the construction right to make a perfectly shaped board. But with that said, it ought not to be mass produced, this style of thing. It needs to be a special thing. Ferraris, they don't make, it's a stark comparison, but like there's a reason they only manufacture a certain amount of them a year. It maintains that premium quality, allows them that much more intricacies on the details, and it also maintains the resale value and like the respect to the customer that if you own one, it will always be treated as a special commodity. The Corkies, a lot of people play with cork. A lot of people have like versions of a cork construction. I don't think anything has like stuck all that well. There's one guy in New Zealand, I'm sure you're familiar, Verdure.
Mm-hmm.
Although nobody knows how to say it except Jack, the owner, but he's doing some incredible things, and he's like actually taken quite a bit of scale behind his business. I think a conversation with him would do anybody's head in. He's such a mad scientist. So there's room. I'm not interested in mass manufacturing anything. I think the Corkies are the only thing that has like a good place in the market if they can be made at scale and maintain that sustainability footprint. But as soon as you go into manufacturing, you don't know what you don't know. And if your product quality drops too much, then you lose sight of why you're doing it in the first place. And that's all of a sudden counter to the ethos of the brand. And you lose your brand identity as like craftsmanship, quality, long-lasting, durable products.
Yeah.
I'm open to that. I think I mentioned to the boardroom show, like I'm looking to speak with a factory on Corkies, but I don't expect there's going to be a solution there that I'm happy with.
Yeah. That makes sense.
We'll see.
Yeah. Just kind of side note question, but how do you, or how often do you ride other shapers surfboards at this point?
I only have one in my quiver, and it's a stretch, and I freaking love it. It's amazing. Definitely, I go in and out. I mean, I have so much work to do in just continually validating my boards. I'm always tinkering on stuff, whether it's just different glass schedules to test pressure denting or flex, or working out a new shape. So I'm constantly pressured to surf my own craft. Um, if I had more time, it would be such a huge priority to surf other shapers boards. And I want what I want to do more often. I think the best way to do that is to work out trades. So if I were to trade with another shaper, right, and if there's equal value behind that, I would love to do that.
Yeah.
I want to support other shapers at like similar levels than me, which are like kind of small core business.
Yeah.
Uh, but like I said, there's only so much time you could spend in the water, and surfing is also work for me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're giving away one of these boards, which I am super excited about because it's the exact everything that you've talked about is the exact type of people I want to work with, the exact type of partnerships I want to have, the exact thing that I want to spend my time thinking about, working on, working with, and you're the type of person as well. So I'm grateful to be able to do this with you.
Yeah, man. So stoked. We talked about it a long time ago, so I'm glad this is coming to fruition.
Yeah, me too. So what I think we're going to do, you and I kind of discussed it in advance, but just to bring the listeners up to speed, uh, we're either going to do a corky or a textile. We're not going to try to do the splinter construction. We got to cap the cost of this at some point. So we're going to let the listener who ends up winning this at the end of the month, or I guess February 1st, it'll be that we pick the name. They can pick whether they want the corky construction or the textile construction. If you happen to have a board in dimensions that suit that winner in stock, perfect. They can have that stock board. We'll get it to them really quickly. If they need something very different than what you have in stock, then I guess we can build one to suit their dimensions, right?
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Okay,
I'm a custom shop. Nine out of 10 is custom builds.
cool.
But I have a wall full of inventory boards and the three different constructions, any amount of shapes. It's a crapshoot to see whether or not we have something in stock that somebody wants, but um, either way.
Yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we pick the winner and communicate with them as to what their needs and preferences are. But consider it a corky or a textile under a certain length, probably around the 7 foot length, just to keep the cost reasonable. And then the listener will also be responsible for shipping cost if they're a shipping distance, which they probably will be. But I'm excited. I mean, I'm kind of jealous of them, to be perfectly honest. I find myself in this situation interviewing multiple board builders every month where it's like, I need one of those. And and I have too many surfboards already, and I have not enough time to even surf anymore at this point in my life. So it's like I find myself, I a couple of years ago, I think, put the brakes on ordering boards constantly
Yeah.
and find myself just being jealous because yeah, both the or actually all three of those constructions appeal to me.
Yeah. That's the tricky part about being a surfer, right? Is
Totally.
to not buy all the new surfboards that you see. Tell that to
Yeah.
Scott.
Yeah. No thanks. I don't think Scott's listening to me about much. Even when I'm talking directly to him on the podcast, I'm not sure he's listening to me all the time.
That's funny. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know him well, only, met him at the boardroom show and had a few chats outside of that, but it seems like he's the guy who's gonna like give himself a challenge not to buy a new surfboard this year. Like that's the January resolution or something. And then you'll talk to him in February and he's got three on the way.
No joke. I
Yeah.
mean, literally no joke.
That's a tough
Um,
work to be into, man. You're you're getting sales pitches all day long, right?
exactly. Yeah. And he's such a surf dog that it's like he can always justify it.
Yeah.
How was your experience at the boardroom show, by the way?
That was great. Yeah, that was
Awesome.
incredible. My first time going there as a patron or a vendor. and I understand it was a very good year, so I don't want to be too jaded by that, but I was so blown away both days about just the magnitude of attendance, the energy, uh, how like the types of people in attendance, how every single person there was actually seemingly an interested party, like not just in learning, but in shopping. Um, had a lot of really good chats with other vendors kind of within a radius of my booth. That was the only downside, is that I had one buddy with me working each day, and I still couldn't leave our booth to go shop. So I wanted to talk to Justin at Dark Arts, and he was 100 feet away, and I just couldn't make it over there the whole time.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Like how quickly that weekend
Yeah,
gets away from you because you're that busy all day, every day.
yeah, yeah. Look forward to doing it again next year if my family is, comfortable with
Good,
the newborn and whatnot.
good.
But yeah, an incredible show. And if not a vendor, I will definitely go again as a customer.
Well, um, for listeners who maybe aren't in the market for a surfboard, you do make other products as well, right?
Yeah, we make accessory stuff, mostly out of our Redwood. So when we make a Redwood board, right, our Redwood source is a 10-foot long by 2-foot wide slab. Each skin is about a fat 1/8 inch, just under 3/16 inch thick, before we sand it down to size anyways. And so we make a 6-foot board out of a 10-foot slab. We got that 4-foot piece left over, not enough for another surfboard, but we managed to repurpose that into as much things as possible. So we have fins, and this is like a hand plane here that we have. So I'm just showing that to you. So this is all made from the scrap wood coming off of the surfboard building process. So we have skateboards, hand planes, fins, and we just came out with a balance board, like an Indo board kind of thing, which actually has been selling really well. Really good for families and kids. And those kind of products are just helping a few things, helping us keep the dumpsters empty, just preventing us throwing away that much more wood, and also just offering another product for people to kind of come in the doors and see what we're doing. Another point of entry into the business.
Yeah. You gifted me a set of twin fins made out of the redwood.
Yeah, uprights or keels.
They were keels. Yeah.
Yeah,
Really beautiful fins and fantastic functional fins, but beautiful.
yeah, that's right. At the boardroom show, right?
No, it was when I first met you, actually, when I was at your factory.
Okay, awesome.
So it was a long time ago, but thanks for that, by the way.
For sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, next time you're coming up, if you're ever coming up to Santa Cruz, um, give me a little notice. I don't know if you might happen to have some time, but I'll pull a board aside for you and we can go for a surf.
Okay, perfect. I'll make it a point to do that. I find myself in Santa Cruz once a year for some reason or another, so I'll definitely do that.
Cool.
Right on. Ryan, thank you so much. Excited to share this with everybody and promote it all month long.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Let me know how I can help.
Okay, I will.
Yeah, thanks for putting it together.
All right, man. Chat soon.
Yeah.
Bye.